I'm Richard Dawkins. I'm a retired professor of biology at Oxford, and I then became professor of public understanding at Oxford. And I'm the author of The God Delusion, among other books. And I'm over here for the Reason Rally, which I'm looking forward to this weekend in Washington. The number of atheists in the country is much larger than people realize. The number of secularists is even larger still. It's customary to regard atheists as a kind of tiny minority. They're not a minority at all. They are actually rather powerfully represented. Well, they're a minority technically, but I mean they're up there with other minorities, and yet they tend to be neglected by politicians who don't see them as a lobby worth listening to, and that's a very big mistake. There are 535 members of the US Congress. Only one has come out as a non-believer. That is statistically inconceivable. Many members of Congress are actually educated. Many of them are actually intelligent. It is utterly inconceivable that only one of them is a non-believer. Enormous numbers of them must simply be lying. Why are they lying? Because they believe they need to in order to suck up to their constituents. And that's because the religious component of their constituency is so vocal. The non-believing constituency has not been vocal enough. It's therefore been politic for them to be ignored by their congressmen, by their senators. And it would seem to be a relatively easy thing to change that, to bring to the notice of members of Congress, you have a very large constituency of non-believers, and you've been neglecting them, overlooking them, and riding roughshod over them as though they didn't exist. Well, they do exist, and they outnumber some of the other lobbies that you've been so assiduously sucking up to all these years. The United States is the envy of the world because it has a constitution which is a model for lots of other constitutions. And among the constitutional provisions is a rigid separation of church and state. So there is absolutely no contamination by religion of the apparatus of government. And that's a very precious thing, which, as I say, is the envy of the world. And it's constantly under threat from people who would like to turn this country into some kind of a theocracy. It is astonishing that it's necessary to use a phrase like "come out," but it is. I mean, it really is true that atheism in this country is regarded in a very negative way by lots of people. Mainly, I think, because people don't realize just how many atheists there are, and there might be a critical mass phenomenon that when the number who do come out reaches a certain number, then suddenly everyone will start coming out. So there is a bit of an analogy to the gay movement. And as I say, I'm hopeful that there will be a critical mass and then maybe an explosive coming out in due course.
Chapter 1. If you atheists have your Bibles with you, let's open them up.